Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. In case you're new here, I'm Jennifer. Today we are back with part 2 of our $50 February challenge. Now, if you saw my previous $50 February video that I posted a couple weeks ago, then you know all about this challenge. Basically, the challenge is to see if your family can eat for the month of February for only $50 in addition to everything that you have been able to store up from your garden that you've produced on your homestead or that you've been able to source from local farms. So as I shared in that video, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a twist on that and turning mine into a little bit of a pantry challenge too. So I've been using a lot of my pantry staples that I always have on hand for this challenge as well. I have lots of flour and other baking essentials in addition to all of the products that I was able to in addition to all of the food that I was able to preserve from my garden last summer. So if you missed that video, I'm going to link it in the video description. So in that video, I'm going to go into a little more detail about exactly what this challenge is about. I also shared with you the grocery haul that I got for the first half of February and all of the dinners that I made using that food. So I think I forgot to mention that in this challenge, the $50 figure is based on a family of 2. Since we are a family of 4, we are actually allowed to spend $100 for the month of February. So basically what I did was I broke the month into 2 sections, 2 weeks each, and spent $50 for each of those sections. So today I am starting weeks 3 and 4 of February. So I just brought home my grocery order. I'm going to show you what we got. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the dinners that I have planned for the next couple weeks. By the time you see this, I will have actually made most of those dinners. I think I'm going to post this a day or 2 before the end of February. So the last couple meals, I won't have clips to show you, but I'll show you what I do have. So let's just dive right into this little mini grocery haul. If you saw my previous video, you'll notice that a lot of the items in this grocery haul are the same as before. We are kind of, or maybe I should say I am, kind of a creature of habit, and I like to use a lot of the same foods, but we are going to cook them in a lot of really different ways over the next couple weeks. So I definitely hope that you will stay tuned and see how I prepare all of this food that we have here. So I'm just going to walk you through what I got, and then I'm going to talk about my meal plans for the next 2 weeks. You'll notice that our meat products especially are very similar to what we got last time. I got this package of organic chicken breasts again. My plan for this chicken breast is to cook the entire package at once in my Instant Pot. Then I'm going to shred it and portion it out between different meals that we'll be using it for over the next couple weeks. So I'm going to freeze up what we won't be using over the next few days and just pull out that frozen, pre-cooked shredded chicken as I need it. Now this is another item that we got last time. I got this 3-pack of organic grass-fed ground beef. So each of these packages here is a pound. So I'll probably be throwing 2 of these in my freezer, and I'll be using the other one over the next couple days. I should mention also that we actually have 1 package of this ground beef left from the first half of the month. So I actually, even though I just bought 3 packages of beef for the next 2 weeks, I actually have 1 left from last week. So we actually have 4 that we can use. That one's in the freezer, so I'll pull that out when it comes time to use it. Once again, I restocked on some cream. This is one of our staples. We use this in our coffee. I also like to cook with cream a lot, so we had to restock that. Now, you'll notice that some of our produce is the same as well. Broccoli, we have some broccoli here. Broccoli is one of my favorite vegetables, and I find it's really versatile and goes in a lot of things. So I'm really excited to show you how we're going to use this broccoli over the next couple weeks. And same with tomatoes. I got a few more tomatoes because I use these in pretty much everything. So new this week, I got some ginger, so I'll be showing you how we'll use that. I also got a head of cauliflower, so again, I'll be showing you how we cook up this cauliflower. I also got a large package of sliced Swiss cheese. So that's it for my grocery haul. So of course you might be thinking, how could you possibly get 2 weeks out of this tiny little grocery haul here? That is what I'm going to show you guys. So similarly to our previous 2 weeks, we'll be doing breakfast pretty similarly. We have lots of eggs coming in from our chickens, and we also have lots of pantry goods that we can use for breakfast as well. Lunches will primarily be leftovers from our dinners, and I am going to walk you through exactly what we'll be having for dinner for the next couple weeks. I'm just going to get this food put away so that none of this perishable food goes bad, and then we'll go over my plan for the next 2 weeks of dinner. So one thing that I forgot to mention when I was showing you my little mini grocery haul just then was that I didn't spend quite $50 yet. I think I spent about $43 on those groceries that I showed you because I wanted to save a little bit of money to get a little bit of fresh produce for the final week of February. So I'm going to be using that about $7 that I have left to restock my broccoli and my tomatoes, possibly my cream if we run out of that. So either way, it'll just be more of what we already have. So let's dive right into the dinners that I have planned for the next 2 weeks. The first dinner that I have planned is going to use some of that shredded chicken. I actually popped that in my Instant Pot and it's now cooking up. So I'll be shredding that right after this video and be using some of that in dinner tonight. So I'm going to be making an Instant Pot ramen soup. Now those ramen noodles can be pretty tasty, but I always throw out the seasoning packet that comes with them because it usually has a lot of things that we don't really want to be eating or putting in our bodies. So I usually discard the seasoning packet and then I will season up the ramen soup my own way. So we're going to be using that shredded chicken in there. We'll be using some of these dehydrated maitake mushrooms. These are actually foraged mushrooms. So I will be putting some of these into the soup as well. I will be including some kale from my garden. I have lots of frozen kale in my freezer, so I will chop some of that up and add it to the soup. I have some homemade chicken broth that we'll be cooking all of that in. I'll be using some of that ginger that I showed you and some garlic that I have left from my garden. So that's going to be a really delicious and easy soup. I'm also going to be hard boiling a few of our chicken eggs and we'll be slicing those and serving those on top of the soup as well. So overall, I think that's going to be a really easy and delicious dinner for tonight. So tomorrow I am planning to make sloppy joes with one of those packets of beef that I showed you. I will be using some seasoning and some tomatoes and I'll be serving that on homemade buns. So I think that's going to be really easy and delicious. Now in case you missed the last video, I mentioned in that video that I'm also growing microgreens. So we'll be using those microgreens both as garnishes on some of this food and also as salads to accompany our dinner. So whenever we have a soup or something like that, something that just kind of needs a side salad to it, we'll be using those microgreens that I'm growing for salad as well. And so we'll be having those alongside our sloppy joes. I'm also planning to make a quiche this week. Our chickens are really picking up laying again, so we have lots of eggs. So we definitely need to make use of that for this challenge. So I'll be making a quiche. I also forgot to mention to you guys that if you saw my first video of $50 February, I did buy a whole package of bacon. I cooked that all up, and what I did was I stuck all the cooked bacon in the freezer. And I've just been using little bits of that crumbled into the meals that we've been having to just kind of give it a little bit more flavor. So I'll be using some of that bacon in the quiche. I'll plan to steam some of that broccoli that we just got and put that in the quiche. Also, some of those tomatoes that we just got will be chopped up, added to the quiche as well. I'll be using a little bit of that cream. I'll be making a homemade crust using some of my flour that I have stored up in my pantry. I plan to do tuna melts one night this week. If you saw my pantry tour that I posted a couple weeks ago, I think right at the end of January I posted that video, you saw that we do have some cans of tuna. That's one of our foods that we keep stocked in our pantry at all times. So we'll be using that to make tuna melts. I will be using some of that Swiss cheese that I showed you guys, some sliced tomatoes. I'm going to be making some homemade sourdough rye bread to go with those tuna melts, and it's going to be really delicious. That's something that we have from time to time, and the homemade rye bread really makes it. I do have a recipe video posted for that sourdough rye bread. I like to make mine extra tangy with lots of flavor. So if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and click the link in my video description and that will take you over to that video so you can give it a try. Another meal that I plan to make this week is a baked mac and cheese. Now when I make a baked mac and cheese, I like to use lots of cheddar cheese, and I do have lots of shredded cheddar cheese frozen, so I can just pull some of that out and use that in my mac and cheese. I also like to include a lot of broccoli right in the mac and cheese, so I'll be doing that. And if I have enough tomatoes, I like to slice tomatoes to go over the top as well. I'm not sure if I'll have enough or not, if I'll have enough left, probably not, but if I do, I like to do that. If not, then I'll top it with a little bit of kind of a just crushed breadcrumb topping. I'm planning to make a big batch of potato soup. I have some homemade chicken bone broth frozen in my freezer, so I'll be using some of that. I have lots of potatoes stored in my pantry. We'll probably be adding a little bit of that crumbled bacon in there, some of that cream. I'll definitely be melting some cheese into the broth, just making it really extra hearty and delicious. I'll be making some sort of homemade, probably sourdough, but definitely some type of homemade bread to go with that soup, and of course a microgreen salad on the side will just take that up and make it really delicious. And of course I did mention that our chickens are laying again, so we definitely need to make use of some of those eggs as a great protein source for us. So we're going to be making omelets one night this week. I actually had mentioned that in my part 1 of the $50 February, we were planning to make omelets during that time, but we actually ended up having more leftovers than I planned on, and we ended up having to cut out 2 of the meals that I had planned. So we did not make omelets, but we're definitely going to do that this week to make good use of the eggs that we have coming in. So again, I'll be using cheese in those. If I have bacon left, then I'll be using some of that. We'll be using some of the same veggies that we've been using in everything else. We'll be using some of that steamed broccoli. We'll be using onions and garlic that I have in storage. We'll be using some of those chopped tomatoes. So I'm thinking that my tomatoes are probably not going to go quite far enough, but we'll make the best use of what we have. I do also have more kale. Well, I mentioned I have a lot of kale frozen in my freezer. I do have that. I also have more kale still out in my garden that I have covered in a plastic covered hoop tunnel. So if I need to harvest more kale from out there, that's another thing that we have access to, just to kind of give our greens a little boost. So that might be something that we end up using in our omelets as well. Another really quick and easy meal that I have planned for the second half of February is just to cook up a package of that ground beef that I showed you with some spaghetti and just kind of throw together a quick and easy tomato sauce. So I think I'm also going to throw in a package of frozen zucchini that I have in my fridge, or that I have in my freezer, I should say, left from the summer. So I still have quite a bit of that left. I did make a really easy and delicious zucchini bread a couple weeks ago, and that made some great breakfast for us, but I still have more in there, so I will probably be using some of that kind of incorporated in some of our other meals. So I'm thinking that might be a great way to use up some of that zucchini. Now, the other meal that I had mentioned in my part 1 to this video that we didn't end up getting to was some homemade tomato soup. Over the summer, we grew a lot of tomatoes. I didn't have quite enough to can up everything that I wanted to can, but I did have enough to make a couple batches of roasted tomato soup, and then they're completely prepared and I just froze it. So I do have 2 meals of frozen tomato soup in my freezer, so I can just pull that out, I can just defrost it and cook it up, and that will be a really quick and easy meal. And alongside that, we will be making some grilled cheese. So I'll make some homemade sourdough bread, and we'll probably use some of that Swiss cheese or maybe cheddar cheese for my kids. They don't like Swiss as much. But either way, we'll be using some cheese from our storage, and we'll just be making some really delicious homemade grilled cheese just to go with that tomato soup. So another meal that I have planned for the final week of February is to make homemade burgers. I'll be using another one of those packages of ground beef that I showed you. We'll be making homemade burger buns. At this point, I will have used that $7 buffer that I have and restocked my tomatoes. So we'll be using tomatoes on those burgers. I'll probably use some microgreens in place of lettuce. I have some potatoes in storage. I also have some homegrown sweet potatoes that we haven't used up yet. So depending on what kind of mood we're in that night, I will be using either some of those sweet potatoes or potatoes to make some homemade fries to go with those burgers. I'll probably saute up some caramelized onions to go on top, and that will just make it really delicious. We should also still have some of that sliced Swiss cheese left, so that will be another really delicious burger topping. So I'm really excited about that. Now, if you hear that weird kind of hissing sound in the background, that's my Instant Pot heating up. I mentioned that I'm cooking up that chicken right now, so my Instant Pot is heating up and kind of making some interesting noises in the background of this video. So in case you heard it and were wondering, that's what that is. Now, I do plan to make another pizza again for the end of this month. I decided to kind of mix it up this time. Rather than, we did sort of a veggie bacon pizza last time. This time I think I'm going to do a barbecue chicken pizza. So I'll probably use barbecue sauce in place of tomato sauce. I'll use some of that shredded chicken that I showed you, and you know, I may have to use some of that $7 to get a red onion, because I think a red onion would be really good on that pizza. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, and then maybe just a little bit of shredded mozzarella cheese mixed in. If you have any topping suggestions for barbecue chicken pizza, I can't promise that I'll take them this month because I'm trying to be really budget conscious, but in the future I'd love to hear some great topping suggestions that you have for that. So that will be another quick and easy meal. I will be making my own crust, which saves a lot of money when you're making pizza and allows you to really work with your pantry staples that you have on hand. So one meal that I'm hoping to get to for the second half of February, I can't guarantee that I'll get to this because it kind of depends on my schedule, is to try to make some potato gnocchi. I was thinking about trying to make some of that and then maybe make a creamy soup to go with it, like a creamy vegetable gnocchi soup or something like that. I've never made gnocchi before, so as I said, that's going to kind of depend on how busy I am, whether I get to trying that new recipe or not, but that's something I'd really like to try. So if I do end up making that soup, I'm going to include some clips of that here so that you can see how it came out. One thing I also forgot to mention as I'm thinking about this soup, I'm kind of planning in my head. If you saw the first half of my $50 February video, you saw that I did buy a big package of carrots. I do have some of those carrots left, so that's something else that I have access to for this pantry challenge. So I can go ahead and grate those carrots up and throw them in the soup. Use some more frozen kale in that most likely, probably some potatoes that we have in storage, and we'll see what else we do. I do have some dehydrated celery as well that I could throw in that soup too. That would make it really delicious. So one thing that I kind of forgot to plan for in the first half of February was leftovers. I thought that I had planned for it because my original plan was to eat all of our leftovers as our lunch, and then we didn't have to worry about lunch. So we did do some of that, but I also ended up baking up quite a bit of bread, and so we had a lot of really simple bread lunches too. So we ended up having enough leftovers to make a second dinner with a couple of our meals. So because of that, I'm kind of budgeting one day in the second half of February to be for leftovers as well. I'm putting that at the end of this video because, as I said, this video is probably going to post a day or two before the end of February. So because of that, I won't have clips of my final meal to include for you, so we'll make that one be the leftover meal. Now you may be wondering, I didn't mention that head of cauliflower that I got in any of these meals. I bought that originally thinking that I was going to make a roasted cauliflower soup. There's a chance I may still end up doing that. We'll kind of see how the month goes. Roasted cauliflower soup is so delicious. So if I get to that, I'll definitely show you some clips of that. If not, what I'll most likely do is roast up that cauliflower as a side dish to go with one of our meals. Maybe we'll combine it with some of the broccoli too. Roasted cauliflower and broccoli is one of our family's favorite side dishes, so that would be a great option to have. So thank you guys so much for joining me and kind of following along with me on this $50 February challenge. I'm really excited for how it's going so far, and by the time you guys see this video, it'll actually be just about over. But I hope that you really enjoyed seeing the ways that I am trying my best to really make my dollar stretch and to really make the most of our pantry staples and food that we have stored up and preserved from our summer garden and that we've also purchased from local farms. So in case you haven't been following along with $50 February yet, I do want to mention that this challenge is hosted by Rich over at the Old Sweets Farm. So I'm going to go ahead and link his channel in the video description. If you're interested in seeing more about this challenge or seeing other channels that are participating in this challenge, definitely go check out his channel. He's got lots of great content to show you, and he also has a list of all the other participating channels, so you can be sure to get lots of great content and lots of great ideas on really stretching a budget and just really cooking from your own food storage. So all of these channels are having a really different take on this challenge, and so I definitely encourage you to check out a variety of channels and just to get some real inspiration for yourself. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you had a great month of February, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye guys. I'll see you next time.